The first way to Playblast is right-click, Playblast settings, choose your Playblast settings, and then you hit Playblast. This method you have to make sure that you click the right camera, otherwise you'll get maybe your perspective cam as opposed to your main cam. And the other option is to use code, and that way you won't have to worry about selecting every camera. It'll just select the camera automatically. So we'll open up our script editor, and step 1 is to create a window. So it's pretty simple. So if window exists, Playblast underscore window. That'll be the name of our window. Alright. And window width 800, height, just say 450. Text, and we're gonna want it to have a title just for the heck of it. Call it Playblast, and then under the tag, Playblast underscore window, and panel layout. Oh. Layout. Pane layout. Playblast. No capital there. Underscore pane layout. And if modelPanel exists, Playblast underscore modelPanel curly bracket, modelPanel Playblast underscore modelPanel, and close the bracket. And then we have our else. Stick this in our curly bracket, model panel EP Playblast underscore panel layout, Playblast underscore model underscore panel. Wrong one. There we go. Because it's the end of the line. Alright. And next we need to show window. So show what we want to do is describe what will be shown in the model editor. So model editor and then we'll think about what kind of things we want to have in our Playblast. So we don't want to have curbs, and I know that curbs are nurbsCurves, and we'll set that to 0. This is a Boolean, it's either on or off, so 0 means off, 1 means odd, and grid 0 HUD 0 hus 0 selection, oh, forgot the little dash, 0 no lights either, 0 locators, 0, and just to be safe, we usually want the polymesh, which is geometry, and we'll set that to 1. That should be good. And now we need to decide the camera. Now we could do this in hardcode or softcode. For this case, I'm going to do it in hardcode. You could like figure out the camera based on some kind of user settings, but for now, I usually in my personal projects just use something called MainCam, so capital Main, capital Cam. So I'll just use MainCam, and that works for 90% of my projects. And then dash display appearance. Let's make it smooth shaded. And here you can add things like if you want the lights to be on, or if you want like ambient occlusion, so you can decide whether to have it on or off. Playblast underscore model panel and close bracket. Alright, now let's take a peek. Copy, paste, enter. Oh, line 4. Not an underscore, it's a dash. Alright. And if we're lucky, should just show up. Make sure everything's in order. Okay. And when I'm running the code again, I have to delete the window. And Playblast model panel. There's no underscore here. Just get rid of that. Control Z. And let's just delete our UI and try again. Then we'll get the error code. Oh, there it is. Alright. So there's a couple errors in my code whenever I was typing. And let's just take a look at which camera it's using. And it's using the perspective camera for, god damn it. I spelled editor, not editor. So editor, there we go. Copy, paste, and invalid polymesh. I must have typed it's polymeshes. Alright. There we go. Ah, beautiful. So, you gotta be very specific with your wording. But there we have it. Whole new window. and it's set to be the Playblast window. And the reason we create our own window is because then we can call it whenever we want to look at it, because we named it. We called it Playblast modelPanel, so we can reference that later. So whenever you click on either this one, or like this panel or this panel, if you want it to focus on this panel or this panel, you have to use something called setFocus. So it's setFocus. And then if you wanted it to set focus on this one, then you have to find out the name of this one, or this one, you'd have to find the name of that one. But we created our own panel, so we can just say set focus, and then we know our panel's name. It's Playblast modelPanel. And then close it. So now, whenever we run our code, just copy, paste, and it's set focus. You can tell by this right here, this kind of gray outline. All right. We will create our Playblast function. So that's really easy to do. It's just Playblast. And this will sort of work, but usually you have some settings that you want to add to this. So for example, maybe every time you want it to be a specific format. So we'll go format, and we need a dash before every one of these things that we're defining. And for the sake of this one, I want an AVI, and we're going to go dash file name. And one thing that's interesting about the file name is whenever I Playblast here, you'll notice the file name, and then file name, and then it says movies / and then it goes to the file name. What we need to do is either we could just type boom, 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 and then movies / whatever we want it to be called. But this is kind of hard coding the title of your movie. And if you want to use this code for like every animation that you do, you want to not hard code it in. You want it to be like based on the file name. So we'll figure that out later. But for now, we'll just call it movies / marshmallow. Oh, marshmallow. Alright, and next step, we're gonna just add all the extra details from this Playblast that we just did. So, force overwrite. I'd like a force overwrite for this. You don't have to. That just means it'll overwrite the old video. So force overwrite, clear cache, viewer, show ornaments. We want it to be 100%. And compression, we have to consider if we're using QuickTime or AVI, which compressions are available to us. So paste that in. So what I'll do here is just change this to none. Since we're using AVI, I don't feel like I need one. Quality 100%. Width height 1280/720 sounds fine to me for a basic Playblast. You could decide to use render settings or something like that, depending on what kind of project you're doing, but in general you can just hard code that unless you want to get super fancy. Alright, so if we run this code, ba-bum, it Playblast from that window, so you'll always get a camera Playblast. And this is almost what we want, but if we look at, so this is the video that we just created. It's actually quite large. Interesting. I probably need a compression. Yeah, looks good. This is our old video that we did by ourselves, the manual version. and we'll see it's called Marshmallow AVI. But see how my file is called marshmallow demo anim, etc. So if I save this as demo anim underscore 02, I'd want my video to be called 02. This video is for version 02, this one's for version 03. So I'm going to make this a universal code. So instead of file name, I want to create a variable that has the name set in it. So first, we need to find our file name. So I'm going to create a string variable file name, and the file name equals file query scene name. Close it. Now if we print variable file name, this just works on its own. It will print right here our file name. Perfect. Now the next step is we need a string for a buffer. So we'll go string buffer square bracket. Because this is going to be an array, we're going to turn every single piece of this directory into an array, a listed array. And we're going to put it into our little buffer here. And the way we turn that into an array is use the tokenize function. So tokenize, and we're going to tokenize file name and / right bracket, and we're going to add it to our buffer, or tokenize it into our buffer. So now it's added to our buffer. So for example, if we wanted to look at the very first item in our buffer, we go print variable buffer square bracket close, and let's just say 0. That's the first one. So we'll take all this, copy, test our code, and it'll give us the C drive because that's the first one in the list. And if we look at the list, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 items in our list. So if we go 8, that will give us the last item because it goes from 0 to 8, not 1 to 9. So if we paste, then it gives us our file name. But we can't just use buffer8 and print that as the file name, because you could put this file in, say, your users or your documents directly. You don't know where this file is going to be exactly. So to make it more universal, we're going to use a simple little bit of math. So I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call it BS. You can name it whatever you want. So we're going to do brackets, and then we're going to find the size of our buffer array, and then we're going to subtract it by 1 because a buffer array list starts at 0, so we need to subtract 1 because the size goes from 1 to 9 and the array goes from 0 to 8. So we need to just remember that 8 is the 9th thing in our list, and we'll close. Alright, now we're going to get the almost name. So almost name, and equals, and we're going to go here and say buffer and square brackets, close it up. And the number is going to be BS, which is the size of the buffer minus 1. So if the size of the buffer was 1, then we would get the first item, which is 0, because it's 1 minus 1, 0. Pretty simple stuff. Now we're just gonna print almost name, close it up. So if we select all this, copy, print, and we get our name of the file, but we still have the .ma, which is .maya file, Maya ASCII. So we want to get rid of that too. And the way I thought of doing this, because it's a string, you just use another tokenize and just tokenize the dot between them. So we'll do another tokenize, almost name, and we're gonna add another buffer. Let's just put it up here. String buffer 2, make sure it's an array styled. Oh, square brackets, close it up. Almost name, and then we're gonna tokenize period and tokenize, turn it into an array, into buffer2, close that up. And now, because we know that all files generally shouldn't have a period between each word, they usually use an underscore. So what we're gonna do is just go, now our name, so variable name equals buffer, square brackets, make sure that's closed, and we're going to do buffer 0. So that list is, buffer2 is the name of the file, and then the dot, whatever type of file it is. So buffer 0 is the first thing in the list, which is the file name, and buffer 1 is the last thing in the list, which is the .ma.txt. So now we're just removing the .txt.ma. And that's it. Now, whenever we look at our file name, we remember that we also need movies / and then our file name. And this is pretty easy to do. We'll just go in here and add that right into our name, just so we get it right off the bat. So movies / and then we'll just add it to our buffer. So plus buffer 0. And now, instead of file name hard-coded in, we can just use our variable that we created, name. My bad. Buffered. Okay, delete. Copy. Love having this. There we go. Oh. Buffer2 is an undeclared variable. Ah, I didn't make it a variable, so you always need that money sign. That money means it's a variable. Alright, copy, paste, there we go. Oh, I forgot. I used buffer, it's buffer2. Alright, so now we have buffer2. And now it'll create our Playblast. There it is, real quick. And if we look at our file location, go to movies, now we have demo2 named after our file. And we can do another one. So save scene as, let's say it's 3. Close our Playblast window. Let's try again. Copy, paste, do another one. We have another file, and it's called 03. If we go to our movies, there it is, demo 3. I'll click it open. And this file is pretty large compared to our movie file, so you can probably add a compression to it. Now the next step to our code is this Playblast window stays open, but we don't need it to stay open. We can just close it right away. And that's pretty easy line of code to just add to the end of this. So underscore delete UI, and we already named our UI, and it's called Playblast underscore window. Close it up. Now, whenever we copy, Playblast, does the deed, closes the window, and we save the file in the same place. So it'll overwrite the old video. So yeah, it overwrited the version 3, and then it deleted the window. So now you can Playblast. So like you're working in this window. Let's take a look here. Add the controls in. You can even close this up completely. Probably not the best practice, but you're messing around in here, and then you're like, ooh, I want to do my Playblast. Run your code instantly, and it has nothing in it, even though all your stuff is visible right here. Super handy, super fast. Add it to a button, or turn it into a hotkey, whatever you want. It's a great way to just speed up your workflow.